Edward is
Yeah.
going becoming globally.
Yes, yes.
Very quickly.
Actually, no, you are going to go much further. You don't worry about. In India, you are going to be very famous, and I'm going to do it for you.
See, okay, so let's start talking about this. We have different healing systems here, Ayurvedic, and a
Yes,
system from Greece, and a system from
yes,
Korea.
yes.
The idea is this spherical pattern should incorporate all of the healing systems because it aims to incorporate everything into one pattern. There was a mystic that I went to go visit back in the early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that throughout ages, throughout the history, mystics and sages have seen a jewel in the center of our being, and they've described aspects of it. So, like acupuncture is one aspect of it. Acupuncture sees a certain part of it. Astrology sees a certain part of it. Ayurvedic medicine sees a certain part of it. And the other systems see parts of it, but they don't seem to grasp the whole pattern.
Exactly.
And that's what I have found is that that pattern is becoming alive. That we can now see what it is and how it functions at the heart of all of these systems.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you use this? I think that's why we're here is how do you use this? And
Yes. I,
uh, Daniela, oh, go ahead, Aisha.
yes. In my practice, I mostly, both the therapies. I use the physical therapy. I'm also a manipulation therapist. So I use the manipulation therapy. Along with that, I use acupuncture. I'm
It's
very beginning in stage of acupuncture. I'm not completely into acupuncture because in my field I'm good enough. This field is a new field for me, so I know much of theory, but in practice I'm not very fast. I still trying to correlate things in a better way.
well in my practice when I use this, I don't use needles. I use my hands. So
Okay.
I'm touching points, I'm feeling toes, I'm feeling the energy with my hands. So when I put my hand on a certain point and that energy begins to release, I can feel it come up into my fingers. So then I know
You
the
must be
energy has moved.
practicing qigong.
Qigong, and I did for years, I did reflexology of feet. So I was able to
Okay.
feel the energy moving through the
Um,
feet. So yes. And so you don't need to use needles. All you need is your hands or your feet. You can use your feet on somebody to also get the same results. But the hands are so much more sensitive to feeling things. I
I
guess
think this will need a years of practice.
one thing I'll say right now is that when you try to understand 6 elements, you'll see 5 fingers and you'll think, okay, there are
Yes.
5 elements. But the palm of the hand holds all of them together. Without the palm of the hand, the fingers would be drooping.
Yes.
They just come down, but the palm holds them together in one place. And that's the 6th element. When you understand
Okay.
how the 6th element holds the other 5 together,
So this form the base of the five elements.
yes. Um, when I was young, I used to say, I'm not going to study any acupuncture until I find a system with 6 elements because I know there are 6 elements. I was born with that.
Okay.
And then one day, I learned about Jinshin Jitsu. Do you know Jinshin Jitsu?
I don't know.
It's a system from Japan founded by Jiro Murai. And
I've heard of his name.
Jiro Murai
You
was
have
a,
mentioned about him in your book.
yes. And
Yes.
he used his hands. He was an acupuncturist in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied with his student, Mary Burmeister. I studied with her for a number of years. he used a system of 6 elements. And he had a symbol of the 5 elements of a 5-pointed star, and then with a circle around it, signifying the 6th element.
Okay.
Now there are other elements. There's a 7th element, there's an 8th element. These go higher up, but it gets very advanced to the point where you're materializing and dematerializing matter.
Okay.
And so that becomes very advanced when you get up into the 7th element and the 8th element. You probably know that certain people can dematerialize and materialize substance.
Yes.
They're using those higher elements.
Okay.
But when you're using 5 elements, you're basically just working with the world, working with the body and our life in the world. When you get to the 6th element, you're going to the energies that hold that together. That perfection of the etheric double, for example, that holds the body and gives it form so that it can express. And you need to get to that point to understand the energies that hold the body together. Once you understand that, then you can move on to the 7th element, where you begin to dematerialize and materialize according to how the body is formed from etheric substance. Now that starts to get really advanced because right now we're just going from 5 elements to 6 elements.
Yes, yes. I actually always had a doubt about the 6th element, which I thought would be the air. Because I always felt that air is one of the most important element. Without air, life is all like without water, how the life is not possible. Even without the air, life is not possible. So I always tried to connect air as a 6th element when I was studying acupuncture, because I felt there is something missing in the cycle, in the L5 element theory. So,
Yes.
but when I read about the seed, the explanation which you have given, the primordial energy, and how the soup, that the earthy muddy soup that it forms, and how the incubation and everything takes place, the maturation of the water, is everything is acceptable. But I feel you said the seed is young. It is young. It is not in. It is young. What I feel, seed is both young and in. Okay, and you said it doesn't have a shape, it doesn't have a form. It's only the presence which takes the transformation process further on to wood. It gives the life, the formation of life. I feel okay, everything is fine, but I feel the seed does have a shape, it does has a form, it has the characteristics of all the elements in that. When the muddy water was maturing, it's holding all the elements in that. It was having the fire, it was having the earth, it was having the metal in that. So could you please explain me this? I had this doubt.
Well, yeah, basically you can say everything has a yang and a yin side.
Yes.
It's just the nature. And also in acupuncture, you'll have fire yin. You know, does fire really have a yin part? Well, it's because of its relationship with other things. Seed is yang because it's a function. It is a force to hold things together in balance. So in that sense, it's an active force. The thing about a seed is you can hold a seed, and there are some seeds which will last 2,000 years.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you put them in water and they will grow again.
Yes.
What kept that life sleeping for 2,000 years? Or let's say
Some force inside that.
Exactly. The seed is a state of an element. How do we understand elements? In the universe, there's a substance at the base of everything. There's a substance. We can call it mind. Some people call it mind. It's just substance. And then the divine nature within us acts upon that substance and creates things,
Yes.
forms, colors, things in the
Everything.
world. But there's a basic substance that just fills the void, and we can use that substance to create. So with a seed, you have the substance taking form as a form of life, and then just staying there, waiting to be born.
Okay.
And it seems like a yin state. But compare that to a rock. You pour water on a rock, it's not going to grow.
There's no transformation of rock.
But then a seed maybe looks like a piece of sand on the beach. You add water to it, and all of a sudden it begins to grow. What is different about that from just a grain of sand on the beach? It's that element seed, which is holding the life forces in a state so that they can be born, into a life. And then you get the element wood growing. This is really critical to understand. To understand that substance of life takes on different forms, different expressions. There's a fire expression. There's also the expression of water flowing. And that substance is moving in a certain pattern, a certain rhythm. And so it looks like water. Or when that substance just sits, it takes on the shape of earth. Or when that substance begins to create forms, and those forms begin to interact and create other forms like molecules, you're starting to get air and metal. And that's just the nature of the substance to start taking on different forms and letting those forms interact.
I have a doubt here, Dr. Edward. Why the air was not considered as one of the important element, like it within the cycle of 6 elements?
Air?
Yes.
Well, for me, metal is air. Why do
How come matter can be?
why do the Chinese use metal? Well, in the past, they used to cook rice. And the rice would boil and create a vapor coming up. And to keep that vapor inside the rice, they put a metal lid on it. And so that metal became a function of the air to keep that air in the rice so it wouldn't dry out. Because they couldn't describe air scientifically, they used the metal of those lids to describe air.
But if you see in other Indian systems of medicine, the air is one of the most important elements.
Exactly.
Yeah, they even consider space, the universe, the space, this ether. Gases is also one of the elements for them.
Right.
So I was trying to connect those elements with this element and, try to create something. Okay, will it connect anywhere? In the primary stage, as you said, there may be secondary stages where you have 8 elements, 9 elements, 7 elements. But at this stage, connecting air is possible.
Connecting air?
Yeah, within the six cycle, seed cycle, or you can make it a 7 cycle as a primary cycle.
No, metal is air.
Okay, you consider as one. Okay, metal is air.
Yeah,
Okay.
metal, it's just a different name for the same thing.
Okay.
Like the meridians for metal are lung and large intestine.
Yes.
And those correspond to, in astrology, Venus and Uranus, which are 2 air planets, or the signs Libra and Aquarius, which are 2 air signs in astrology.
Okay.
So metal combines with air into the same archetype.
Okay.
Just imagine that you're going to create this spherical pattern, and you're going to create life. You create that spherical pattern, and there's 12 archetypes that live in that. And between them, they can move at the speed of consciousness. So that ability to create comes from the spherical object upon which we can create objects. It's the heart. It's the heart of our consciousness and our being. And it creates objects, visions, thoughts, feelings. It creates a logic upon which we can live a life. So this object, I've seen it in meditation at a distance. It looks like the sun at a distance in space. I know other people who have seen it in a near-death experience, and I've talked with them directly. You can visit this object, the spherical object. You can go and see it. Mystics have seen it. I have seen it. Other people have seen it. It's not, well, let me just say, it really is not common for someone to see this. It's very unusual, it's very rare, but it does exist. And to understand what it is a high consciousness. It takes a lot of meditation to understand the seed, that seed of life from which we can reincarnate many lives over and over again.
Would it be the Merkaba?
Yes. The Merkaba sees an aspect of it, but the Merkaba has not been able to see it as it is. It's just kind of approaching what it is, but it's not able to just say it's a spherical pattern based on 6 elements and 12 archetypes in relationship. The Merkaba hasn't gone that far to simplify the knowledge. The Merkaba is still too complex. Do you have a question at this point in time?
Yes, I have one more question. In the book, it is written the pathogen of wind is in the body mind comes from seed element. I could not understand this point actually.
What's the first part of it?
You have been saying that actually it is the metal that provides boundary for the seed. Okay, but sometimes what happens, the seed leaks. It leaks and that forms a wind. It forms the pathogen in the body mind. So you have said that from the seed element, the pathogen wind is formed in the
Right.
body and the mind.
I'll go back to this one idea about first about how you diagnose disease.
Okay.
So the spherical pattern is perfect, and it projects a personality which is corruptible. It itself is not corruptible. It is perfect. But it puts on the corruptible. So our personalities are corruptible. We become attracted to different things. And that disrupts that original absolute peace. And the idea eventually through meditation and things like that is to return to that absolute peace of the spherical pattern with our soul. And then be able to we can see life from that absolute peace and not be attracted to the things of life. And then all of a sudden we lose that peace again. So in putting on something corruptible, the personality and the body is corruptible, it can be diseased. But it's diseased according to the patterns of what created it. So because what we live in life, as far as a story, our diseases, our emotions, of what we live, that has to come back to the spherical pattern and be understood. And it's understood according to its own pattern of how everything relates. So in understanding and diagnosing disease, All we have to do is understand these 12 archetypes and how they relate, realizing they relate in an infinite number of ways. But all we have to do is break it down into 12 archetypes and seeing how they're relating and talking to create disease.